Let's start with a hard truth most people don't want to hear. Getting rich isn't complicated. People like to pretend it is. They talk about it like it's some mysterious formula hidden in ancient books or locked inside elite circles, as if only a few chosen people know the secret. But the reality is much simpler than that. Wealth isn't complicated, it's just uncomfortable. It doesn't require genius. It doesn't require perfection. What it requires is something much rarer: brutal honesty with yourself and the courage to act strategically. Most people don't fail to become wealthy because it's impossible. They fail because they refuse to face the price that comes with it. They want wealth wrapped in comfort. They want success without pressure. They want rewards without risk. But the world doesn't work like that. Many people want to work a little, complain a lot, and somehow expect life to reward them with extraordinary results. They believe that a little effort and a big dream will magically change everything. But reality doesn't respond to dreams. Reality responds to principles. And the principle is simple. Money doesn't flow to those who wish. It flows to those who understand the game. Not the game they want the world to be. The game as it actually is. This is something Niccolo Machiavelli understood centuries ago. He studied power, not comfort. He observed human behavior, not fantasy. And what he discovered was simple. Reality rewards those who face it without illusions. So let's strip away those illusions right now. Forget the motivational slogans you've heard your entire life. Work hard and good things will happen. Is that really true? Millions of people work hard every single day. Most of them are exhausted, underpaid, and stuck. Dream big and you'll succeed. No, dreaming without power is just entertainment. These phrases sound nice, but they keep people predictable. And predictable people are easy to control. They wake up at the same time. They follow the same routine. They perform the same tasks. They scroll through their phones. They go to work. They come home. They watch something, go to sleep, and repeat the cycle again tomorrow. Predictability is rewarded with survival. But survival is not the same thing as wealth. Comfort is not the same thing as control. Think about it. Do you really believe the system wants everyone to become rich? Of course not. The system prefers people who are manageable. It prefers people who follow instructions. People who dream but never act. Because the moment someone begins to act, to question, to build something, instead of waiting for permission, that person becomes dangerous. And systems don't like dangerous individuals. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He saw what many people refuse to see, that the world is not fair. Reality doesn't reward goodness. It rewards boldness. It rewards people who refuse to wait for rules to benefit them, and instead learn how to bend those rules in their favor. So here is the first brutal truth. Most people remain poor because they follow rules that were never designed to make them wealthy. They were told a simple formula: work hard, save money, hope everything goes well. But wealthy people don't rely on hope. They rely on strategy. They don't just save money. They invest it. They don't spend their lives working for money. They build systems where money begins working for them. Let me paint a simple picture. Imagine two people living in the same city, starting in the same year. The first person follows the traditional path. They get a job. They work every day. They collect a paycheck. They save a small portion and hope that it will be enough someday. Now imagine the second person. They still work, but they also study markets. They learn sales. They experiment with building something of their own, maybe a small business, maybe a side project, maybe a digital platform. Fast forward 10 years. The first person is tired. Their income has barely grown, and inflation has quietly eaten most of their savings. The second person has something very different: assets, cash flow, leverage, freedom. So what changed? Not the number of hours worked, not intelligence, not luck. What changed was perspective. Wealthy people don't play the same rules as everyone else. They follow three very simple principles: own, control, multiply. Most people are taught to trade time for money. But time is the worst currency you can trade because it constantly runs out. Ownership doesn't run out. When you own something, a business, a system, a brand, an idea, you shift the entire equation. You stop working only for money. And money begins working for you. But most people never take that first step. Why? Fear. Fear stops millions of people every single day. The fear of failing, the fear of looking foolish, the fear of stepping outside the path everyone else is following. But what many people never realize is this. The path everyone follows rarely leads anywhere meaningful. It leads to a retirement party, a lukewarm cake, and a pension that barely covers basic expenses. Fear builds a cage, and that cage often has a beautiful name: stability. Stability sounds safe, but in many cases, it slowly destroys opportunity. Jobs disappear, economies shift, inflation quietly destroys savings. The structure people believed was secure suddenly collapses. That's not safety, that's delayed risk. The people who build wealth understand something different. They are not chasing safety, they are chasing control. Control over their time, control over their income, control over the direction of their lives. And to gain that control, they take risks. Not reckless risks, strategic ones. They understand that risk isn't the enemy. Risk is often the door. As Machiavelli famously suggested, fortune tends to favor the bold, not the loud, not the emotional, the bold. The people who move forward when others hesitate. But here's another reality most people miss. Even when people understand these truths, many still remain stuck. Why? Because they confuse activity with progress. They stay busy, but they move nowhere. Like a hamster running inside a wheel, moving constantly but staying in the same place. They work hard on things that don't move their lives forward. Jobs that drain their energy, habits that dull their focus, distractions that consume their time. And they convince themselves it's progress. But getting rich isn't about movement. It's about direction. You must learn how money flows. Then position yourself where that flow passes. Build leverage. Capture more value than you spend. Protect what you earn. Multiply it. That's the entire formula. It's simple, not easy, but absolutely possible. Think of money like a river. Most people stand on the edge, hoping the current splashes a few drops toward them. Wealthy people do something completely different. They build canals. They build pipelines. They redirect the river so it flows directly into their land. Same river, same world, same opportunities, but two completely different approaches. One group waits. The other builds. One group hopes. The other takes action. And once you see the difference, you can never unsee it. Now here's where the game becomes even more interesting. Machiavelli spoke about two forces that quietly control human behavior: fear and desire. Every powerful leader, every great strategist, every successful empire builder understood this. The wealthy understand it too. They know that people rarely make decisions purely based on logic. Most decisions come from emotion, fear of missing out, desire for status, the need to belong, the hunger to feel important. And the people who understand these emotions gain a powerful advantage. They don't just sell products. They sell identity. They sell the feeling of becoming someone different. Look at the most successful brands in the world. They rarely focus only on the product itself. Instead, they focus on how owning that product makes someone feel. Confidence, success, status, belonging. That's the real currency of modern wealth. They are not simply offering items. They are offering transformation. This is why understanding human psychology is so powerful. When you learn how people think, what they fear, what they secretly want, you begin to see opportunities everywhere. And the moment you can connect value with human desire, money starts flowing toward you. Because the person who can make others want what they offer will never struggle financially. Influence creates opportunity, attention creates leverage, and leverage creates wealth. This is why influence has become one of the most valuable assets in the modern world. Attention is the gateway to everything. If people notice you, opportunities appear. If people trust you, opportunities multiply. If people follow you, you gain the ability to move markets, shape opinions, and create demand. Money follows attention, and attention follows value, personality, and visibility. But there's something important you must understand before you step onto this path. Success attracts resistance. The moment you start rising, people will notice. And not everyone will celebrate your progress. Some will whisper, some will criticize, others will say you changed. They'll say you got lucky, They'll say, "You became arrogant." But what they won't see are the nights you stayed awake, learning while they were relaxing. They won't see the risks you took while they hesitated. They won't see the pressure you carried while they played it safe. They'll only see the result, and sometimes they'll resent you for it. This is something Machiavelli warned about centuries ago. Power always attracts opposition, and wealth often does the same. When you rise, you unintentionally remind others of the risks they never took, and that can make them uncomfortable. But that discomfort is part of the price. You cannot pursue extraordinary results while expecting universal approval. Those two things rarely exist together. So you must ask yourself an honest question. Are you willing to pay that price? Are you willing to face criticism? Are you willing to step outside the comfortable expectations of society? Are you willing to stand alone at times while building something that others don't yet understand? Because that is often what the journey requires. The truth is, the world has never been divided by intelligence. It has never been divided purely by effort either. The real division is perspective. From a very young age, most people are trained to follow instructions. Sit down, memorize this. Don't question that. Raise your hand. Get good grades. Find a safe job. Stay there for 40 years, then retire quietly. This was the script many people were handed, and most people accepted it without ever questioning whether the script made sense. But think about it carefully. This system wasn't designed primarily to create independent wealth builders. It was designed to create stability, to produce reliable workers, to keep society functioning smoothly. Schools rarely teach people how to sell. They rarely teach negotiation. They rarely teach investing, building businesses, or creating assets. Yet those are exactly the skills that often create financial freedom. Why? Because someone who fully understands those skills no longer depends on the system. They can build their own path, and independence is something large systems don't always encourage. The wealthy recognized this reality long ago. Instead of blindly following the rules, they learned how the system works. Then they used that knowledge to design their own strategies. They understood a powerful principle. Wealth is rarely created through labor alone. It is created through leverage. Leverage means multiplying your effort. Instead of 1 hour producing $1, leverage allows one action to produce value again and again. Think about a person who works only for wages. Their income depends completely on their time. If they stop working, the income stops. Now imagine someone who builds an asset, a business, a platform, a piece of content, a digital product. That asset can continue generating value even when they are not actively working. The difference between these two paths becomes enormous over time. One person is trading time. The other is building systems. And systems scale. Imagine two lives again. One person wakes up every morning at 6. They drive the same route, answer the same emails, attend the same meetings. They hope that eventually things will improve. Years pass, but nothing fundamentally changes. Now, imagine another person starting in the same place. But instead of blindly following the routine, they begin asking questions. How does money really work? What skills create value? What opportunities exist outside the traditional path? They start learning. They experiment. They fail. They try again. Maybe they start a small side project. Maybe they create content. Maybe they learn sales or marketing. At first, progress is slow, but slowly, something powerful happens. Momentum begins. Their side project becomes income. That income becomes investment. That investment becomes freedom. 10 years later, the difference is dramatic. One person is still trading time. The other is trading assets. One person is exhausted. The other controls their schedule. And it wasn't luck. It was perspective. It started with one dangerous question. What if everything I was taught about money was incomplete? Most people never ask that question. Why? Because comfort is addictive. It feels good to feel safe. It feels good to be accepted by everyone around you. But comfort often hides a quiet danger. It slowly replaces ambition with routine. People stop pushing themselves. They stop exploring their potential. They settle into patterns that feel stable but limit growth. And the most dangerous part is that this slow drift can feel normal. People believe they are content, but in many cases they are simply numb. Their curiosity fades, their drive disappears. Their days become predictable, years pass quietly, and before they realize it, the opportunity to build something greater has slipped away. Machiavelli once warned that people tend to forget danger when times feel comfortable, but danger never forgets them. Economic shifts happen. Industries change. Technology evolves. The world keeps moving whether someone prepares for it or not. That's why power, strategy, and awareness matter. Because the world respects strength far more than comfort, and strength is built through discipline, through strategy, through learning how the real game works. If someone truly wants to build wealth, they must begin unlearning certain assumptions. They must stop relying on comforting illusions, and they must accept one of the most difficult truths. No one is coming to rescue them. Not their boss, not the government, not society. Their future will ultimately depend on the actions they choose to take, which leads to the most important starting point of all, skill, because in the modern world, skill is a weapon. And those who sharpen that weapon gain enormous advantage. Skill is the real weapon of the modern world. Not degrees, not titles, not paper credentials hanging on a wall. Real, practical skills, the kind that produce value in the real world. Selling, writing, coding, design, marketing, persuasion, negotiation. These are the tools that build empires today. Because every great business, every powerful brand, every successful venture is built on value creation. And value is created by people who possess skills that others need. So, if you want to begin this journey, you don't start with money. You start with mastery. Choose one skill, not 5, not 10, one. Then sharpen it every single day until it becomes impossible to ignore. Treat it like a weapon. Practice when others relax. Study when others scroll endlessly on their phones. Improve when others complain. Because mastery does something powerful. It builds confidence, and confidence attracts opportunity. When you become truly good at something valuable, people notice. Opportunities begin to appear. Doors open that were previously invisible. Skill creates value. Value attracts money. And the more value you can create, the more money begins moving toward you. But skill alone is only the beginning. Once you have skill, the next step is leverage. Leverage is what separates the wealthy from the overworked. Most people think about money in terms of hours. How much will I earn today? How much will I make this week? But that mindset traps you in a small box. Workers think in hours. Owners think in systems. Instead of asking, how much can I earn today? They ask a different question. What can I build today that keeps earning tomorrow? That shift changes everything. A job is linear. 1 hour of work equals 1 unit of pay. But systems are exponential. One product can sell thousands of times. One video can be watched millions of times. One piece of content can continue producing value years after it was created. This is why the internet has become the greatest leverage machine in history. It amplifies effort. One person can reach millions. One idea can spread across the world overnight. One creation can build an entire business. The internet doesn't care where you were born. It doesn't care about your background. It doesn't care about your accent, your past, or your degree. It cares about one thing, what you create, and what value you bring. A single post can go viral. A single product can scale globally. A single offer can change someone's entire life. But there is a barrier that stops most people before they ever reach that stage. Visibility. Many people are afraid to be seen. They fear rejection. They fear judgment. They fear criticism. But invisibility is far more dangerous than failure. Because if no one knows you exist, your opportunities remain invisible too. This is something Machiavelli understood deeply. Perception is power. The way people see you shapes the opportunities you receive. When people see strength, confidence, and clarity, they respond differently. When people see hesitation and doubt, they respond differently. This is why successful individuals invest heavily in their brand, their communication, and the way they present themselves to the world. They don't wait quietly hoping someone will discover them. They step forward and claim attention. They tell their story. They build presence, even when they feel fear, because the world rarely rewards the most deserving person. It rewards the most visible and undeniable one. And when you begin rising, something predictable happens. Resistance appears. Some people will question you, some will mock you, others will try to minimize your progress. They might say you changed, they might say you became selfish, they might say you got lucky. But what they won't see are the sacrifices you made along the way, the nights you stayed awake building something while others slept, the failures you faced while learning, the pressure you endured when nothing seemed to work. They only see the result. And they judge the result without understanding the journey. That's the price of progress. But on the other side of that resistance lies something most people never experience. Freedom, not the illusion of freedom, not weekends and short vacations. Real freedom. The freedom to decide how your time is spent. The freedom to choose who you work with. The freedom to say no without fear. The freedom to wake up and design your own day. That is what wealth truly buys. Not just luxury items, choices. But even after someone begins to earn serious money, the journey isn't finished. In many ways, the most difficult challenge appears after wealth arrives. Because making money and keeping money are two completely different skills. Money behaves like fire. Used wisely, it provides warmth, security, and power. Used carelessly, it destroys everything. Many people who suddenly become wealthy lose it quickly. Why? Because they confuse wealth with status. They try to look rich instead of staying rich. They buy expensive liabilities. They chase approval. They try to impress strangers. And slowly, their wealth disappears. The truly wealthy think differently. They spend strategically. They don't feel the need to impress people they don't respect. They focus on assets. Assets that produce income. Assets that grow in value. Assets that protect their future. Every dollar becomes a soldier, and they send those soldiers into the world to bring back more. That is how wealth multiplies. Not through luck, not through gambling, but through disciplined investment. And once wealth begins to grow, protection becomes important. Because wealth attracts attention, it attracts competitors, it attracts opportunists. Sometimes it even attracts betrayal. That's why the wealthy build protection around what they create. Legal structures, contracts, clear boundaries, strategic partnerships. They protect their assets like a fortress, because power without protection can quickly become weakness. But there is one final level of this journey that few people talk about: the psychology of the endgame. What happens once someone finally achieves financial success? Because money does not magically solve internal problems. It reveals them. If someone was reckless before wealth, they will become more reckless with more money. If someone was insecure before wealth, they may remain insecure even with millions. If someone lacked purpose before wealth, money will not magically create purpose. So true wealth requires something deeper than money. It requires clarity, understanding what wealth actually means. Wealth is not sports cars. It is not luxury watches. It is not private jets. Those things are symbols, echoes, sometimes distractions. Real wealth is control. Control over your time. Control over your environment. Control over your choices. If someone else owns your schedule, you are not truly free. If someone else controls your options, you are not truly wealthy. No matter how impressive your paycheck looks, this is why the greatest builders think beyond themselves. They think in generations. They think about legacy. Not just money for today, but systems that continue providing for their family long after they are gone. Assets that support their children. Ideas that continue shaping the world. That is the final stage of wealth. Creation that outlives the creator. But the truth is, most people will never reach that stage. Not because they lack ability, but because they never begin. They hear ideas like this. They feel inspired for a moment. They nod. They agree. Then they return to the same routine, back into comfort, back into distraction, back into the familiar cage, and the system welcomes them back. It rewards them with just enough stability to keep them quiet, just enough comfort to prevent them from questioning the script again, and the cycle continues. But a small number of people choose something different. They decide that today is the day they stop living entirely on someone else's terms. They tear up the script. They choose growth over comfort. They study money the way a soldier studies strategy. They sharpen their skills. They build things nobody gave them permission to build. And when they finally succeed, they don't apologize. They don't beg for approval. They simply continue building. Because they understand something most people never realize, wealth was never mysterious. It was always simple. Learn, build, own, protect, multiply.